Hi. Do you want to baffle your coworkers and loved ones with physical objects containing in-jokes from a podcast that you listen to that, people like it, but it's not a huge thing? Yeah. Go to Duckfeed.tv/shirts, where you can get to our merch store and not just shirts, but also mugs and art prints and things like that, with all kinds of art from the Duckfeed.tv family of properties. Once again, that is Duckfeed.tv/shirts.
Some of our landings were desperate adventures. We are now prepared to meet the inevitable counterattacks with power and with confidence.
My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Kole Ross.
And you're listening to Bonfireside Chat. It is a Profane favorite.
Yep, and this week we are reading your responses to Irithyll Dungeon and the Profaned Capital. Thank you so much to James, who was with us last week from the Canon Rinse podcast, and also from a new podcast project called Retrofit. Go check both of those out.
Yes, a gentleman and a scholar.
Yeah.
Very, very nice guy. I liked having him on quite a bit. We've been recording for a long time, so we're going to get right into it. I'm ripping off the band-aid of how monstrous I'm going to feel for not liking the same thing that you guys like.
It doesn't pop up as much as you think.
Okay.
It's don't worry. There's one person that writes explicitly in defense of Siegfried.
Okay.
Yeah.
I look forward to reading it respectfully. Jeffrey says via contact. Thanks for doing the PvP episode and giving voice to a lot of the concerns I and many in the larger community have had about the state of PvP in Dark Souls 3. I consider myself an outsider as well, with a casual interest in PvP at best, but when I do get around to invading, it's disheartening to get matched with co-op parties 9 times out of 10. I feel like focusing on the invader's dilemma kind of obscures a related issue, however, and that's players who play the game simply don't get invaded anymore. You'll get a token invasion in Farron and in Orlando, but the rest of the game is a desert. This is a bummer for players who want to enjoy the game alone, but still enjoy the tension that getting invaded brings to the Souls formula. It's gotten to the point where I can leave my game for 5 minutes to go use the restroom or grab a snack without worrying about anybody finding me away from keyboard. It feels like ever since Dark Souls 2, and especially in Bloodborne, From has made invasion sort of an opt-in experience, just like dueling. You can summon phantoms or use the dried finger to increase your odds of invasion, but the risk of ever getting invaded when you're unprepared for it have gone out the window. Any thoughts on this?
I think it's a change for the worse. For the way that I engage it. Like I never got terribly cross about being invaded. I know a lot of people did in Dark Souls 1. They thought, okay, why are you adding insult to injury? By giving people the ability to gank. And maybe, soul level 1 stuff in the Undead Burg is a little bit too far, but there was always that sense, that something terrible could happen. Something intelligent and evil could, cross the veil and make your life more difficult in a way that did lend tension to the proceedings. It was only ever a thing in Dark Souls 1, really. I never played, by the time we did Demon Souls, that community wasn't very active anymore. Dark Souls 2, they had already swung the PvP over to those factions being like arena based, invasions. It just never really happened that much for me. Especially in Dark Souls 2, where it can happen all the time. Like, it doesn't really matter. There's no like you're not human, right? There's no hollow form that keeps people away. So I agree, even though I initially did not like being invaded, but I grew to like it. Yeah.
So it does happen very rarely. When it does happen, I'm pretty into it.
Yeah.
We talked about that a little bit, just in that idea of it being part of the world. It's supposed to be part of the single player experience, that hostility. So I agree. Like, I wish that it came up more often. And as somebody who is just, I'm never going to do like a fight club. Like, that's just not interesting to me. I would much rather run away from a guy or use a Seed of Giants and then try to hunt him down. Things like that, like, are more fun and more kind of spontaneous.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. So that was something we didn't really bring up in the way that PvP had changed, but like from kind of the normie perspective, as somebody who's kind of doing PvE, I like getting those accidental little flakes of PvP in my experience. It is the curly fry that comes in the onion ring.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, moving on to responses about these areas. Stefan writes, "A Let's Player running through the dungeon, Irithyll Dungeon, was my first experience with Dark Souls, and that's what got me into the series. So I knew the dungeon area from watching that guy playing it, right? I dislike horror movies because I can't handle jump scares that well. That being said, the 2 or 3 Screamulons holding those random items got me to clutch onto my controller in terror every time, and my backseat playing wife too." Yeah, she got spooked too. Dark Souls 3 had me think about the sound design specifically. How many watermelons had to be squished? Have you not considered their sacrifice? They didn't say that. Am I the only one hearing the dying whistle when a pus of men is slain?
Yes, Foley is awesome. Foley is really interesting. God. Like these guys that just go and find things in the produce aisle to make sounds.
Yep. Snapping carrots, just snapping all the carrots in the world. No, the sound design is great. I am fortunate enough to be able to play this in 5.1. I've got the subwoofer right behind my my recliner. Like it, you pick it up. Like even the ambient sound is great. Like that's one of the few things that I can find very little fault with.
One of the things I like about the Screamulon specifically is that Dark Souls on Revisit, the first time I'm always listening very intently. On subsequent playthroughs, it became a really good podcast game for me.
Yeah.
It's weirdly, something that is, for as difficult as it can be, I actually find works really well with that flow. So the Screamulons will, if I forget which one is a Screamulon, will still shock me because it is louder than whatever I'm listening to.
It cuts through. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing is that's been a great thing for soapstone messages, because it's such a, like, it's just a perfect, like, composure required ahead is a really perfect response to that. I really like that.
Oh man, I found a great soapstone message in the Profaned Capital. There's like a little overhang where there's just a rubbish. It's just like a body carrying some rubbish, and then there was a message that just said "you ahead."
Oh,
it's like, okay, that's pretty good.
I like that.
Yeah.
Soapstones are awesome. I wonder if there's a blog that just compiles really great soapstone messages.
I don't know.
If not, there should be, because those are fantastic. Connor says by contact, "The glorious return to Latria, Irithyll Dungeon. I'm struck by how powerful of a dichotomy I've experienced between my first playthrough and my second. Your comments on the series steadily shift from fathomless lore and painstaking world design to a ruthless hate fuck of make it harder challenge gauntlets really sticks with me as I play Dark Souls 3. I was laughing during, this is editorializing, I was laughing during that because it sounded like he was saying we were doing a ruthless hate fuck of Dark Souls 3, and I was like, whoa.
Let's pump the brakes on that.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call that a ruthless hate fuck. But yeah, he's talking about the difficulty spike in the game. What at first was an overwhelmingly positive experience has left me little to lure me back, except for here. The fusion of sickly green light, nightmarish enemies, and a strong sense of cohesion with the surrounding areas makes this my favorite area of the game. Plus the fact that it's a Latria Redux earns those rarely warranted nostalgia points. It sets my mind off concocting stories for the things I find here the way few other areas in this game do, regardless of a general absence of lore to support them. While it doesn't so much do that to unify the goings-on of the world around it, the dungeons are a gleefully macabre microcosm of provocative imagery that I delight in immersing myself in. Finally, the enemies. I falter when trying to describe the ones that are unique to this place. Anthropomorphic mole rat men? Are those vestigial wings? And those flabby, grabby hand freaks in the capital? I'd like it more if they felt like they had any conceivable reason for being there, but whatever. They spook me all the way out, and I love it.
Yeah, haunted house.
Yeah, haunted house. It also something that the straw man I construct in my head from a lifetime of interneting. The person who's mad at me for liking Irithyll Dungeon despite not liking callbacks in general. The hypocrisy patrol. The reason why it feels okay to recall Latria to me is it doesn't get recalled very often.
Right.
It was like a unique thing in the first
aside
game of the
from
series.
the entirety of Bloodborne.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's kind of a stretch. I'm
just being the straw man that we are constantly shadowboxing.
Yes. Yeah. Because there's a little bit in the research hall that's pretty Latria, like in Bloodborne. Yeah. But it hasn't been that well has not been drawn back to. Yeah, very often, So, and that area is, and I wanted it to be, because it's so cool. So that is something where like I'm okay with them revisiting that because it's great.
It's also a mechanical quote. I think the stuff that we bristle against are the lore quotes.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like architectural and mechanical quotes I'm way into.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Man, I feel like such a dummy because one of my favorite things about Irithyll Dungeon, I didn't even say in the episode because we got so swept up in the conversation getting into it, but the color, Gary, the color.
Oh yeah.
That sickly green pallor that's kind of cast across it. I think that is, something that I really enjoy when the Souls games, when they kind of are emboldened to do something that is not just gray, when they can just pick a color and go with it as kind of the theme for the area. Like that sticks out, and it's one of the few areas in this game that does that so strikingly. As it does here. I think it's that works very well.
And it's right on the heel. It can be directly on the heels of Irithyll,
yep,
which is equally like beautiful and striking in color palette. Like that's one thing that this middle kind of section of this game really does really well. And then even when we go back to Lothric, after this kind of post-apocalypse thing we're going to deal with, this post-sky hole, it's even got kind of a pretty cool kind of apocalyptic orange color to it that's really neat. I didn't mention the thing. I mean, I mentioned it offhands, but how much I love the fact that there are masks watching you from chairs.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
In this, like, it reminds me of, like, I didn't like A Machine for Pigs very much, but that was my favorite thing about that, was just finding those masks, like, looking at me.
Yeah.
Really pretty cool area.
Yeah, so like the set dressing was on point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, in a way that used the clutter to really good effect.
I think so.
Yeah. Let's hear. Nathan writes, Irithyll Dungeon, the place of nightmares. The first area in a Souls game that has really unsettled me. And I would not trade that experience for anything. My first time running through this area, I completely missed the shortcut that all the way back to the first bonfire. So you can imagine when I saw a terrifying jailer ritual, summoning ritual happening in the end, I noped the fuck out of that situation and bolted past all of those bastards, never looking back. And I missed out on all those goodies. Irithyll Dungeon does a lot of wonderful environmental storytelling, and boy, does it deliver in every way possible. The enemies are assholes, the layout is confusing, and the screams made me jump even on a second playthrough. I cannot get enough of this godforsaken shithole. I mean, it just covers a lot of stuff we said, like all of that. Just thumbs up, thumbs way up.
Yeah, I didn't even think of the jailers as doing a ritual, but it does kind of look like that.
Yeah, but they're doing a ritual around just like a strut that supports the walkway.
They're just thankful for ceilings.
Yep.
They're just praying for the fact that, like, when it rains down here, they don't actually get wet. And you know what? That's pretty cool. When's the last time you thanked shelter? People are always happy about the food they eat.
Yep.
No one's ever just like, roofs, check them out.
You know? I'm just picturing a hymn, like a hymnal version of "Gimme Shelter."
Yeah. Gave me shelter.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Elodie says via contact. Irithyll Dungeon contains an item that might give the biggest clue as to what the Profaned Flame is, the Profaned Coal. The item description says that it is a remnant. The real Profaned Coal is not that polite.
Yes.
Or just, like tits. The item description says that it is a remnant of the Profaned Flame, but it is used for infusions related to the Abyss and to humanity. And Andre describes it as being tainted by the Abyss. I think this suggests that the Profaned Flame is similar to the dark pyromancies that consumed Karthus, a dangerous and unholy combination of light and dark, a flame of either light or chaos corrupted by the dark. Also, Carla, who you meet here, is most likely a fragment of Manus, according to the description of her ashes. It's likely that she's Zuli from Dark Souls 2, who fit the bill for a child of the Abyss, attempting to waylay a warrior who is trying to cure a lord's illness, but ended up falling in love with him. This is a parallel to other fragment stories in Dark Souls 2. Her ashes say that fragments of Manus drift in and out of her existence, and descriptions indicate that she doesn't have anyone to search for anymore. They also described her as spurned. Alva, the Wanderer, appears in this area, named Seeker of the Spurned, and is hinted to be searching for Zuli, who is lost. I interpret this as indicating that Zuli drifted out of existence and back in without her memories as Carla. Alva is searching for her unbeknownst to her, and when you kill his phantom, you can find his body near her cell. They just missed each other, and he died just before finding his lost love.
Yeah. So I referenced Elodie's connecting the dots in the episode, actually, because I would not have remembered Zuli. Like, I remember Alva because, Alva pops up in the, Saint Serata sickness. That's a very evocative phrase. But yeah, like I buy this.
Yeah, I don't know that Carla is Zuli. Like that feels like a stretch to me. I think that the Alva connection, I think that he's doing, he's kind of fulfilling the same role that he filled before. I don't know that this is actually Zuli. In Dark Souls 2, I just kind of took that as like a real evocative little short story and an item description.
Yeah.
As opposed to having more significance. Like the idea that the fact that Zuli seduced him is the act of a daughter of Manus. I'm not sure if I would go along with that. I do think that the fact that Alva is here for her, and even if it's just him down to him being confused or like this is what he does, like this is him. That seems really really viable to me.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have hurt anything just to make it Zuli instead of Carla. Like that. I guess that's. I mean, I don't know. That wouldn't have been too obvious for me.
Right.
I also didn't remember Zuli.
Yeah.
It's just a name. So then we have to kind of add in this like amnesia kind of plot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she also doesn't like say like, oh, I was this or that before. It's just the name that changed. She doesn't allude to that. I feel like there's there's somebody who should be important to me or something like that. Like it's not hung there. Again, it is a void that we can project upon, and that is a cool tragic love story. If by her nature she is
totally
fading in and out, and all of a sudden there's this guy who is like traveling across time to get her.
Yeah, that's great. Like I'm not trying to shit on that as a story.
Yeah.
I just. Again, that would benefit from a scholar style like just item description remix. Then,
yeah, it's like hey, if that's what you wanted to do, if like that all of a sudden makes Carla really really cool.
Yeah, at the very least, like more than just the kind of nothing she is now.
Yeah,
and it could be even something like once went by another name in a distant land. Like it's not
in a different time in a different place.
Yeah, not difficult to make that. To add that one little extra star that makes the constellation.
Yep. She gave up her name along with one she held dear.
Totally. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Elodie is also doing like fan art and stuff. She did a really good a good drawing of Carla. Carla is her favorite NPC and did a drawing of me. Thank you. Yeah, that's on the Facebook.
Yeah, she is active on our Facebook.
Yeah.
Which you should join. Facebook.com/bonfireside chat.
Let's see here. That was you, and this is me. Gordon says, this was my absolute favorite area of Dark Souls 3 since it completely recaptured the feeling that I got while playing Dark Souls 1 for the first time. The feeling of unending and absolute cruelty while you're ground down into a shape and form that can endure the torment. It goes beyond the obvious mechanical effects of being pressed into the ground with a burning brand while you have tens of thousands of souls on the line, and it takes the time to grind your very soul down with screaming corpses and genuinely upsetting passive enemies. You push your way past blatantly unfair encounters, one after the other, all the while keeping an eye out for your HP dropping like a stone. All of this builds to a recreation of the very end, of the end of the corridor scene in Old Boy, when the figurative elevator doors open to reveal a room packed full of jailers, and all you can do is stand there wearily, smiling mirthlessly, and get to work. This is me editorializing, sometimes with a hammer.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, which you can do in this game. We didn't just for completionism's sake before somebody corrects us. The brand thing is very reminiscent of Berserk.
Oh yeah,
and Guts, like them cursing you with this brand, and even the symbol is kind of similar.
Oh yeah, I mean, I call it the hunter sign, but yeah, it's like a peace symbol kind of thing.
Yeah, and that was, the hunter sign even had a little bit of visual similarity to the Berserk brand, like not exactly the same.
Yeah.
Again, don't at me, but they're similar. Yeah, but yeah, well said. I don't know. I have very much to add to that.
No. I don't know that it's I don't know. Like it's so hard. This is one of those things where like the atmosphere takes primacy over the mechanic. Like, and I remember having trouble. I remember you warning me about these jailers and just kind of like, oh, this is where the DS3 version of Frenzy comes into play. Like I remember all of that. Nothing sticks out. I think that what Gordon is saying holds true. It is, difficult in a different and an unexpected way. I don't know that this is, grinding you down, back to dust so they can build you back up again. I didn't read it as that difficult, and that is not me being like, oh, it was hard for you, but just more like, I'm trying to be conscious of the fact that we sometimes use the emphasis on difficulty as kind of like a bad thing. I just want to make sure we're not caught up in an inconsistency there.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So because the hypocrisy patrol will get us
right.
I do think the emphasis on difficulty is generally a bad thing, but here this does not feel, especially, we're heading to Lothric Castle relatively soon, which has much more difficult encounters that I do think are kind of too much. And then Archdragon Peak as well.
Hey, Gary, I was just thinking, we don't have to do Chalice episodes this season.
That's pretty cool.
I know, right?
Yeah. I mean, we do have to do like a 6-episode series on the Nameless King. Because I think that he might be Gwyn's firstborn.
Wait a minute, what? That's crazy.
So we do have to do that. I beat the Nameless King, and I will beat him again, but I'm bringing help.
And I'm not gonna.
I'm not doing it with. I'm not going to put myself, which would be like the mechanical Chalice dungeon, kind of part of it, like the kind of hard part, but not just endless streams. Like, man, just for the amount of work we put into the amount of episode we got out of it, the Chalice dungeons were a pretty poor investment.
Oh yeah.
Like there was a lot of hours of play. To
kind of confirm something that we knew in the first fifth of it. Like I'm not just kicking the series while it's down. Like that isn't there, but you talking about like what is ahead of us. I had a flash of last year. Like we had to plan special episodes around when we would be doing the Chalice dungeons because we needed a month to take care of it.
Yeah, because it was so tedious. And there's as much as I have been down on a lot of Dark Souls 3 things, I don't think there's anything in Dark Souls 3 that's as bad as the Chalice dungeons.
No.
At their worst. Like there's nothing that's as bad as Defiled Chalice Dungeon in this game. So
good on you.
Got that going. Yeah, it's got that going for it. Boaz or Boaz, I apologize if I've been mispronouncing your name.
Next time you write in, please clarify because I feel like a dummy when we do it wrong.
Yeah, I do not mean to. It's not an insult. He says, he or she says via contact, or they. Irithyll Dungeon is a great example of how to iterate on a concept. It uses a lot of the basic design elements of Latria, but plays with the way they work. The switch from mind flayers that could stun you to jailers that could drain your health makes sense with the more aggressive playstyle that Dark Souls 3 favors, and the way they lightened up on keys means you're not constantly running up and down levels. It stands in contrast to levels like Smoldering Lake / Demon Ruins, which cite other areas from earlier games without actually learning anything from the design or mechanics from those areas. So, the Profaned Flame. I'm on record as a Chaos Fire fanboy, and I was almost certain that it had to be Chaos. Until I found the Demon Ruins. Now, you guys mentioned that this game feels like different people had different visions for the game as a whole. Here's a conspiracy theory. And if we can cue up the conspiracy theory music from Teenage Dirtbags.
Birthers, truthers. Jet fuel can't melt steel beams. Moon landing? I don't think so. What really happened at the Grassy Knoll? The Bilderberg Group, the Build-A-Bear Group, Illuminati. Illuminati's House of Pies. Secret. Spooky.
The Profaned Flame was supposed to be Chaos under a new name, since everyone had forgotten what it was a la Dark Souls 2, but that concept got lost in the development process. Then, whoever took over and looked at the game said, we forgot to put Chaos in, and made the Demon Ruins out of spare assets from Karthus and Dark Souls 1. I'll buy it.
It's like, oh boy, this dog is sick. I need to make sure I feed it its medicine. I wonder if my roommate fed this dog the medicine. I guess we might as well give it to it.
Exactly.
My son, he's pretty forgetful. I don't know if we should give him. The dog's dead. We fed him too much medicine. Fuck.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. It's like feeding fish.
Yeah.
It's just a nightmare of preciseness. Yeah, I mean, I would buy that. Like, this would make sense as an evolution for the actual Chaos Flame.
Oh yeah, like to see that adapting and trying to survive, because it is a living thing.
Yeah,
like
it adapted in Ilium Lois.
Yep.
Like as a thing, like that had an effect and kind of moved past that. Like that would have been very cool and significantly cooler than the Demon Ruins that we got.
They don't even need to honor what they did in the first time. They just need to like remember.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Remember the face of your father, Miyazaki. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I'm into it, man. The more I can start calling people Sai. I can say thank you. It's fun.
Yeah, you can say thank you. It was hard to tell whether Sai was a person or whether it was like just kind of a vocal tick.
Oh, it's the way they say sir.
It means
they
like
thank
dude.
you, Sai.
Okay.
Yeah. See the most recent episode of Try This, where we talk about The Filth by Grant Morrison and the first of the Gunslinger Dark Tower graphic novels.
Indeed.
Yeah. Adam writes in saying, I really, really despise Irithyll Dungeon, and I quite enjoy the Profaned Capital, even if it is quite short. The Irithyll Dungeon was one of the areas that made me remember why I sometimes stop playing Souls games. The numerous dead ends and ambushes, and the annoying-ass jailers that will lower your health to a 10th and then brand your ass into the ground. What's worse is that if you want certain pyromancies and dark miracles, you have to come back and run through a small bit of it just to unlock a door and get an NPC. The Profaned Capital, on the other hand, really grabs me, not only because of the interesting connection between Sigvard and Yorm, but also with Sullivan and the other mysteries that surround it. The Profaned Capital reminds me of a much more dense, sunken city from DS2, while Irithyll Dungeon just seems like a shorter blight town. I would be curious what about Profaned Capital reminds you of the Sunken City aside from the aesthetics. Like I can see that, like this underground city that is in disrepair and kind of like
columns.
Yeah, like tilted off. Like if there's something that I'm just not seeing, because I will admit, like as much as I love the DLC from Dark Souls 2, that's some of the content in the series that I've played the least. Like I did it twice.
It's I mean, some of it's just visually because you're looking off in the distance with kind of crooked towers.
Yeah,
there's just one, but I can see it. Gameplay wise, it doesn't seem that similar.
Right. There's not the. Like, I think about the Sunken City. I think about like moving platforms and shit.
Yes, like it's very puzzle based, and it's not. It's like this. I feel like it's the same level of density. It's just that Shulva is 5 times as big. As the Profaned Capital. So
I don't hold the Profaned Capital's brevity against it. For all the things that kind of bother me about it, like that's not a problem that I have.
I don't ludically hold it against it, but it has an element of suspension of disbelief where it's like, part of the joy of going through these games is going through cultures. Like you go through Irithyll and it's like, this is a city. Yeah. This is a place where people lived. Like that really brings home the tragedy. I'm always going to be, if I see where somebody sleeps in a Souls game, like I'm tickled, and at no point does it feel like a city or feel like a culture other than the fact that they really valued gems. Yeah. And that's where that extra space could have been used. So it's not implicitly it's shortness that bothers me, from a stage design standpoint. It's just from an environmental storytelling standpoint, I think it doesn't feel like a place. It has no sense of place. Yeah. No. Which is really, really important. Like feeling like a place that people would be is huge. Yeah. Where things happen outside of you. Yeah. We see we see a tower that has been stripped of anything inside of it that would have been that would have indicated inhabitants. And we see what amounts to 2 temples. Yeah, Swamp Church and regular church. Wealth Church and Swamp Church. And that's really all we get. And like if it's going to be the only representation, like just think about moving through Irithyll, where there are dozens and dozens and dozens of buildings. You don't get to go in them, right? But like that's presumably when this was at its height of its culture, where people lived and worked and stuff. Yeah, it's a facade. Yeah. That's really important. That makes an area feel real. And then think about how they played with that in Anne Orlando originally and stuff like that. Like that's a tool. So don't eschew it. Right. Friend says via contact. It was strange to hear you compare the Profaned Capital to Lost Izalith and calling it an unfinished mess. To me, it felt much more like the Crystal Caves, a short but beautiful and atmospheric run-up to a big and intimidating, but ultimately not that difficult, puzzle boss. It even had an almost identical big guy on narrow bridge fight. It wasn't the best area in the game in terms of gameplay, but the enemy placement made for some interesting encounters. As for the boss, I love that fight, in part thanks to Sigvard. For most of the game, I was with you guys, hating the fact that they made another bumbling idiot Onion Knight. This encounter reframed that entire experience. Sigmar is extremely powerful and capable. Telling. They write Sigmar. I thought I fixed that. Fuck. That's okay. Yeah, Sigurd is extremely powerful and capable. He was just procrastinating this fight. It's also my favorite place to sunbro. In a series that's very short on player empowerment, there's nothing like taking turns slamming down that giant. After that long story, I'll try to keep my comment on the dungeon part short. Feel free to cut any of this if it goes too long. We always feel free. The dungeon might have been a cheap callback to the Tower of Latria, but that's fine by me. There's something hardwired in my brain that makes me love anything like that. The new wardens are an interesting mix of Mind Flayer and Winter Lantern, making them terrifying but also easily beatable. Even when I know I can defeat them flawlessly, I still dread every encounter with them. This means somebody from Ephraim did their job very, very well. Yeah. I have heard the argument that like Sigurd is not incompetent; he's just procrastinating. Yeah. That to me stretches credibility. Like falling down a well to procrastinate is a real stretch. That feels willfully obtuse to me.
Yeah, I mean, just no, boy, I shot myself in the foot. I guess I have to go home from Vietnam.
Yeah, it's all cutting off your finger to get out of the draft, where he can just not go.
Yeah.
Like it would be, if he just really didn't want to do it. And the fact that it can so likely just end with him just not making it.
Yeah.
Like it just, the things he does to get caught don't feel like somebody dawdling.
Yeah.
Like the way to express that idea would have been to have him, and this would have been, again, kind of like subversive and neat, and him to just be like, hey, maybe he like gives you more background. He's like, hey, maybe this will take care of itself. And you get an option. You're like, no, it won't. Like you actually encourage him rather than literally free him from death.
Yeah.
That would have felt like he was putting it off.
Yeah. I mean, like that would make it a little bit like Irina, right? Or not Igon, I believe.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Who just basically pawns Irina off of you, or onto you rather, because it's like, well, man, fuck, if you want to take care of this, go ahead and do it. Like if more NPCs were trying to trick you into doing their work for them,
sure.
Like
well,
that, that would fit in with the Lords of Cinder too, because none of them want to go do their fucking job. You have to go and take their ashes.
The lady who tells you about the wedding with Henri is kind of tricking you.
Yuria. Yeah.
Yuria. So there's a little bit of man, it's so confusing that she's Yuria and then Carla is our Yuria.
Yep.
Substituting this, like there's literally infinite names in a fantasy world. You can just put any letters and together and you can make a name.
Use 5 Ys and you're done.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because it's not. I don't think that she's meant to be like a reference to Yuria.
Nope.
Because we have a reference to Yuria. That is very frustrating and confusing. But the like you could have made it more like you were being kind of tricked, or he's trying the same way like a person acts when they're trying to get you to talk them out of something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just like that would have been a meaningful expression of that idea.
Yeah.
And he's not a badass. You have the storm ruler. Like everyone is a badass. Like it sounds like I'm really calling you out, friends. I swear I'm not, but like, it's not that he's super competent. It's anybody with a storm ruler can do that. So even the fact that you go in there and you co-op it and everything shows that it's not about Sigurd being competent. He just has the right tool for the right job.
Yeah.
It's really easy with 2 people, no matter who those 2 people are. It doesn't have to be Sigurd.
Yeah. He's bookended by fights that he's likely to win.
Yes.
And then everything in between is this soggy middle of like checkpoints that you have to go through that make him look really, really bad.
The first one too, even like that first fight, it does seem to express some competence.
Yeah.
But I don't think the last one does.
Yeah. Well, the first fight sets up the expectation that he's going to subvert it, but no, he just falls back into it and doesn't carry any of the interesting things forward to it.
Which is in itself an absurd subversion, but like when you subvert the subverted, like that ends up being, I don't know, because what you end up with is just whatever the thing is.
Yeah, you reverse the reverse.
Yeah,
in terms. Yeah,
yeah. I agree with you completely though about the dungeon. That is I'm pretty into that. I also like the fact that the jailers always have a sense of tension. Mm-hmm. I like them as an enemy. I'm a little bit mixed on the Estes tax portion, but I like them a lot more than I like Winter Lanterns.
Yeah.
And
because they won't end a run.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like just a loading screen whenever they show up.
Yeah. I always forget that Seath is a puzzle boss.
He is, sorts. But the puzzles.
Yeah, the puzzle is just a step. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's just a fight.
Yeah.
The other thing too, when you're saying how it's compared to the Crystal Caves, like I guess we actually kind of answered this when we were talking about Adam's response, but it's not a fact that it's short that's the problem with it as feeling unfinished. It's the fact that like one, the profane, like it is literally unfinished in the storytelling. Like the profane flame stuff is contradictory and confusing, but it doesn't have a sense of place because there's not enough there for this to be a culture.
In contrast, the Crystal Cave is otherworldly enough and distinct enough on its own, and also like as a sub dungeon inside the Duke's archive. We've been seeing kind of the fringes of this crystal corruption that is happening, and then we actually get to the very heart of it by going in there. And it's a cave. Well, yeah,
it's not like it's not like the new capital of Crystallonia. It's like,
oh my god, I want to go to the capital of Crystallonia. Yeah, this game that you have laid of heaven into existence. I want to play it.
I go to the capital of Crystallonia. The Crystallons.
Oh, with the fair facet maidens.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I'm into that. It'd be like Adventure Time Souls, the Crystal Princess.
I had a girlfriend in high school named Crystal.
My ex-wife is named Crystal.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about that.
Yeah. Hey, high five, buddy.
Joe says via contact, and here is Gary, your dreaded moment. This is a preemptive Sigvard supporter message, hopefully one of many. I feel like you dislike old Siegs because of how trivial he makes the Yorm battle. Is it even possible to lose with him by your side? I would just like to point out that Yorm himself tasked our Siegbrow-chugging, Estus soup-slurping friend with taking him out if anything were to happen. No shit, I hear you say, but think about it. How much of a dick would Yorm be if he asked a friend to fight him who couldn't easily beat him? Okay, not to mention how badass it feels traversing that fog and having our new onion bros step out beside us. Umbasa. Working backward through that, the moment when you step through and it pans to reveal that there is not a phantom, but somebody who you have been helping out all on the way at your side, that's cool. Like,
pretty cool.
Taking in a vacuum, that particular scene, and especially him making that declaration, that's affecting and good.
It is good. It's, I'm trying to remember if I brought this up at the essay. Not as unique in the series as it maybe seems, given that Bior does kind of the same thing. Our other sleepy boy from Demon Souls comes and fights Penetrator, not as a phantom. But it is cool.
Yeah.
Is effective and good. And he's a likable character.
Right.
So I think that's where it comes from. The affection comes from. I know that Yorm gave him the job to do it. Like, said he would make the process.
That's the thing. This is the labor that Sigvard is enacting.
Is charged with.
Yeah.
By Yorm. It's an agreement they made. Like, right. I get that part. It's so that's not the reason why I don't like it. Like, and I don't need to repeat them all from last episode, but like, that's not really my problem.
Yeah.
Or like my problem with it. Not like that's not really my problem. It's your problem. That's how I mean it. That's not my issue with it. It's just even that story of like, hey, kill me if I go too far. $1 million baby me. That aspect of the story doesn't get enough time. Is like, really, a lot of people are likely to miss it. I don't care enough about Yorm, as much as I care about the $1 million baby. And then that's not that interesting of a story. Like, it's just be a good friend.
If Yorm was optional and the Profaned Capital was optional, so much of this would have gone away.
A lot of it is that expectation of a Lord of Cinder, which again, that's not my fault. That's the game showing me Yorm get up out of his coffin in the cutscene in the beginning, and me spending the whole game being like, man, when am I going to meet that guy? That's like the game working. That I had these expectations for a significant fight that the game has honored in every other case, right? Right. Like, as much as I love Aldrich. I love that boss fight. My two favorite boss fights in the game are Aldrich and the Twin Princes, which are both Lords of Cinder, who have the sense, and I love them. Like, they're great fights, and they're great pathos-wise and story-wise. Like, they're my favorite things about this game.
Even the Abyss Watchers.
The Abyss Watchers are good too. They're like, we're here too. Like, they're a little bit like a B-level thing for me, but I still like them a lot.
Yeah, mechanically they're super great. You know, and it's different at the very least.
Yes, and then just to have like this one attic stooge kind of in the background here, like they're just the one person who's just kind of like,
Gary, come on, not a basement stooge.
Thank you, capital stooge, capital stooge. We just had this one guy who's just like not cutting it, and to the degree to which he cuts it is dependent on this incredibly fiddly NPC quest line that's an NPC that doesn't have anything profound to say anyway. It's held up by a lot of baling wire and tape that is cursed and haunted, and was like only created by orphans.
You bought it from the Haunted Home Depot.
Haunted House Depot,
Bed Bath and Beyond and Beyond the Beyond.
So it is. It's my reasons are manifest. But again, I don't want to take the fact that you liked it. I've read a lot of like really great, including this one, like good defenses of Sigurd, and like even if I could take that away from you, I wouldn't take it away from you. It just really disappointed me, like in a way that like it doesn't. This isn't the series of games for us to live and live with. Like, it is a significant portion of our jobs to care about these games. Right. It's not like just like a video. Like, if you don't like it, move on. Like, that's not what we do.
Yeah, right.
I'm invested at this point. This is more than a video game to me. So
I was able to start recording this 4 hours ago because because of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it is. I cannot live and let live when stuff like this happens.
Right.
Thanks everybody for your responses. If you have things to say about the Consumed King's Garden and the Untended Graves, and I want to hear all of your theories about that stuff, hit us up at duckfeed.tv/contact.
Yeah. If you don't have anything to say about those, but you have something to say about Lothric Castle instead, go ahead and do that as well.
Yes.
However, this is a kind of a thing. We asked for them in the same breath. Try not to put them together in the same message, because the way that I file them, it's by area. And if you say like, hey, here's my thoughts about one than the other, it's probably going to get lost. I'm asking you to accommodate my laziness and inattentiveness, but that is the best way to make sure stuff gets remembered. So write about one than the other, or one or the other.
Yeah, you can do it all in the same contact form. You just reload and
yep.
And no big problem there. Thank you guys very much. There will, if you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/DuckFeed.tv. If you can also rate and review the show on iTunes, we've gotten many reviews recently. They're very kind. Really do appreciate that. And you can also join us on Facebook at facebook.com/bonfireside chat. If you want to see cool fan art and cool links and generally participate in the conversation.
Yeah, and stick around. We're kind of in the last leg of the game, honestly, in terms of like the narrative and in terms of kind of the momentum as things go. Like when we defeat the sword dancer or whatever her name is, like that kind of kicks off the rush toward the end. So it's kind of crazy how fast this has gone by. But yeah,
it's a short game area wise. Like does not have very many areas in it.
Yeah.
We do have a couple more specials coming up, 1 to 2.
Yep.
One of them's kind of in the balance, so it may not happen, but those top 10 and top 5 specials will keep trickling out.
Yep.
So hopefully you've been enjoying those. And again, you have the Souls of Darkness Kickstarter backers to thank for that. And one of those even features Kole Ross.
I know, right?
This guy. That was a really fun one too. So
confirming the fact that we really, really dislike this series by putting me on the bottom 10 bosses. I believe I chose the bottom 10 bosses because I didn't want to heap praise on stuff that we had already praised so many times before.
Yeah. We tend to we'll talk about a boss when they're bad, but they don't tend to come up again.
Right.
So it was good to but yeah, I think that episode has insight in it and is fun to listen to. There will not be deleted scenes really here. We did talk to James and kind of got to know each other and stuff, but the content ended up being stuff we end up covering in the episode afterwards too. So it'd just be kind of repeating ourselves.
Yeah.
So anything, I think that's probably it, right?
I believe so. They were called Xantha Scholars, but some foolishly imitate them by simply dressing in yellow.
Umbasa.
And we all pray that we will have far more soon.
All right.
I panicked and searched. I just did a Control F for a quote mark, and that was the first one that I scrolled to.
Perfect.